you can paint complex atmospheric environments without complex three-point perspectives. Today, I'm showing you an easy template you can use, and it still gives you more room for detail and atmosphere. In fact, this is the perfect way to learn those things. Before we move on to more complex techniques, I really want you to look at what I have on screen here right now. These are literally just box selections, and half of the entire composition is just a mirror copy of those exact same boxes. So no matter what your drawing skill level is, you can definitely do this same base to practice this. By the end of this video, you'll know how to turn simple boxes into a cozy place that people actually want to be in. Just the same way beginners tend to overshoot for way too complex perspectives in the beginning, it's also possible to make the entire process way more difficult for yourself by using too many colors. And I understand why this happens. When you're blocking in, your brain starts screaming for variety. It goes into this monkey mode that thinks, hey, new object, new color, right? Don't listen to it. We can do better. Instead, try these two simple tricks. Have at least one desaturated surface in your illustration. It can be a gray floor or pale light surface. This helps define light and shadow colors in your scene. This also forces you to decide what the hue of your light source is. Then simply pick the shadow color from the opposite side of your color wheel. It's that simple to paint gray surfaces. Now, we don't have just mood, but we have a clear guide on how to mix colors on those saturated surfaces as well, because they follow this same logic. Then, when you are adding new colors to add object separation, instead of adding more colors, think of how you could vary the existing colors with minor hue, saturation, or value tweaks to keep them unified. More often than not, the way to solve bad colors in a painting is to think about what to remove rather than what to add. We kind of have to force ourselves to think simple because by default we go for the complicated. Whenever in doubt, simply think about the 3-bucket rule. I do all of my color design this way. This means that you have a lot of one color, some of another color, and then just a pinch of your third color. The extra colors you can add later are like sprinkling on your cake. And I'm not here telling you not to add sprinkles, but let's add them to the top of the cake once our base is done and solid. Now we know how to build things. That's not enough though. To make it interesting, we need to know how to break stuff in style. Simple boxes can easily look robotic, and symmetry is by default usually quite boring. But just by handling your light source so that all of your surfaces are lit slightly differently, that way you can easily turn any painting from boring to visually appealing. This also gives you a lot more control over your composition, because you're literally putting a spotlight on the thing that you want people to be looking at. On top of highlighting elements with direct light, you can also design what elements could cast shadows on your scene. Here, some of the shadows add diagonals to get rid of that grid look that we had in the beginning, and some shadows break straight lines completely. So when you're adding lines, also think about the lines that your shadows are adding, and then vary those shadow line types as well. Now here's how to do this. Foliage and plants are great elements for breaking shadows, because you can turn straight lines into something way more interesting. You can even hint at elements outside of your scene by casting shadows into your painting from objects that are existing outside the bounds of your canvas. This makes your entire world seem more believable, and you can make your viewer imagine what is happening outside of the thing that you are just showing them. It's simple, it's easy, but it works. Now, I'm going to let you in on a secret. When I do these sort of leaf shadows, I'm not actually tracking a single leaf to some shadow casting source. I think you can get away with quite a bit of artistic license for the sake of your painting with these, and I do. I often use this as just another composition tool. And hey, if you get caught doing sneaky stuff like this, just tell them Mikko made me do it. Don't be afraid to break your stuff. Look at this diagonal shadow over the doors. I made it on purpose to be this sort of wonky element to kill that perfect digital look. If this was an old building, it wouldn't stay perfectly in place for decades. Some wear and tear makes things more interesting, in my opinion. Just because you can make perfect shapes with a quick shape tool or something similar, that doesn't mean that it will always look better. I have really shaky hands. It's difficult for me to do straight lines without any assistance. But over time, I've learned not just to live with it, but I think these sort of shaky lines can also be a strength in my art, because I like broken things. They bring that handmade look, especially if I let my messy lines be visible with confidence, instead of doing a whole lot of work to hide something that comes naturally to me. So as you're painting, we have all of these assistance tools like quick shapes and selections, but keep in mind that the way that you paint is unique to you. Especially in this day and age, having a look that is unique to the way that you use the brush, I think that's a huge strength and a huge unique selling point to all of the paintings that you do. These handmade elements that are impossible to make perfectly symmetrical are also an easy way to make symmetrical elements in your scene look way more visually interesting. Even if you directly copy and paste some elements, it doesn't take that long, honestly, to paint at least some areas partially to give them a bit of extra character and uniqueness. Let's add that depth without complex perspective techniques. When you're building props, think about how you can place them so that they don't completely cover what's behind them. Instead, give each item a place by making them behind or in front of something. If we look at this section here, the marquee comes forward. It's only partially covering the window. The window has this print on it, but you can still see all the knickknacks through it. And beyond that, we can still see some of the ceiling lights inside the coffee shop. Layer by layer, each one of these is communicating that this scene is a space. You can do all that by just spending a little bit of extra time deciding what kind of props you are adding to your scene. And personally, I find this the most interesting part of doing a painting in the first place, because this is where you are building your story, thinking about what kind of cups does this coffee shop use, what kind of products they are selling, how on brand are they, or is this not part of some chain, or is it just a tiny coffee shop running on a small budget. All of those things add up and build this story that your viewers might not immediately know when they look at your scene, but just building that story in props, when they see your painting, they can feel that it has been made with this kind of design and love. At least I believe so. With these simple tricks, you can turn even the most boring and simple looking grid into your own little coffee shop. If this easy level approach helped you, check out my Building on Fundamentals as part of my art course on Gumroad. That has my full painting checklist method in a more advanced illustration that you can follow step by step. Let me know in the comments what kind of scenes you'd like to learn next. Give this video a like, and that way I will see you in the next video.